There we go.
All right, this will be the regular call meeting of the Manchester Planning Commission. I see all members present except for Alyssa. Mark her down unless she shows up. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from our November 18th meeting. I think everybody was sent copies in advance. Were there any changes or corrections? If not, we need a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item is comments from citizens. Oh, yeah, let's see, I guess I will, we'll make Mr. Goodwin the acting secretary tonight, since he's closest to the chair and the vice chair.
You want mine, then I'm gonna have one.
All right, next item is comments from citizens. So if there are any citizens in the audience who had a particular item they wanted to address, if there's something specific in the public hearing parts, I'll invite you to speak then. But otherwise, if the comment is, if the citizen is in the audience that has a comment, we'd be glad to entertain it at this time. Okay, seeing none, we'll move into business. First item is a preliminary final plat, 2 lots on Rogers Circle, map 85B, Group D, parcel 13, for Rudy's Cardinal number 24 LLC, currently zoned R3. Is there anybody here on that item? Okay, Brittany, you want to talk us through it then?
So as stated, it's a preliminary final plat for 2 lots. It's currently 1 large lot, they're divided into 2 lots. The property is zoned R3. This division will allow for a duplex to be built on each lot, actually. The square footage is available. Our only comment is to coordinate with Manchester Water Sewer Department on sewer availability. Aside from that, staff recommends approval.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for staff on this one?
Where is Rogers Circle? Is that off Summer Street?
It's very close to Summer Street. It is off of Clover Lane.
Okay.
But both lots meet the subdivision requirements?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any known issues we've had with the sewer in that area?
I do believe it is above a chronic manhole, but they may not be able to get sewer tax at this time, but the division of the property is approved. So, recommended by staff.
Okay, anything else? If not, staff recommends approval, subject to the punch list item.
Move to approve.
Subject to the punch
Subject
list?
to the punch list item.
Second that.
All right, we got a motion to approve, subject to the punch list, which has been seconded. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Item number 2 on the agenda has been deferred by the developer. So item 3 is public hearing for amendment to subdivision regulations regarding sidewalk placement. So Brittany, you want to tell us real quick about
So
that?
this item's on the agenda. It's actually on the agenda per your all's request from the October meeting. A developer did not like that we requested the sidewalks be within the right-of-way. They want the option to put them outside of the right-of-way. Our subdivision regulations that I've included in your all's packet and that's here on the screen state that sidewalks and pedestrian ways in general be within the public right-of-way. My professional opinion is that an amendment is not needed. Again, this item is on the agenda per your all's request. I did advertise it as a public hearing, as it should be. So you all have this, and then Adam with Scott's office also provided us with a cross-section to kind of show us what kind of issues we would run into if we do allow it outside of the right-of-way. I'm going to get super detailed on your questions. Scott and Adam are here. Adam, I worked really closely with him on this.
Wasn't Alan's issue is he wanted to put the sidewalk on the property, owner's
Yes.
property?
Yep.
And so this doesn't do that, right?
Right, so what's in front is what's currently in the subdivision regulations. We do not see an issue with it remaining the way it is.
How did we end up resolving that night? Because what I was thinking the discussion was at the time, and maybe that's why, he was talking about, or Mr. Northcutt was talking about pushing the setback back an additional 5 feet from 20 to 25, and then having a public use easement in that area for the sidewalks. I'm just trying to remember where that sort of ended up in that meeting.
So the best I recall is that his plat was approved, and that particular punch list item was open-ended in a sense. But my memory could be not correct. We could go back and look at that, but ultimately, this amendment or non-amendment won't affect only that development. It will affect all developments.
So the reason we did that was because we didn't think there was room to put 2 cars in a.
I think the reason he wanted to set it back is he wanted to have, like the bottom picture shows, you show a 13-foot, I think it says, grass strip. He says you'll need that kind of room to put all the utilities in, but he assumed that the right-of-way wouldn't need to go that far. It would be actually on people's property, I thought. And so you've drawn these pictures to show that if you push it back that far, and you use just a 20-foot front setback, how it ends up splitting a person's driveway.
Right, and I mean, ultimately, if more than one person is home or somebody with a large truck is home, the sidewalks in a neighborhood are useless, and you're still gonna have people walking in the street.
So if you have major utilities like he was talking about, he was concerned with buried electricity and so forth and so on, would the utilities then be on the homeowner's property?
Potentially. There is room for them within the right-of-way, but potentially some of them may need to be within an easement on the owner's property.
I thought there was something that says it had to be within 2 foot. The median strip of grass,
That's
at least 2 feet wide. Okay, all right.
So I guess another question would be if a developer wants to have, of course, the setback is really a minimum, right? The house could be set back further than a setback.
Yeah, and I think he even offered doing that on his development, that he would push the thing back. Whether that's all formal and official or not, I don't know. But
That's what I'm just trying to think. I guess if I'm trying to think if a developer wants that extra grass to make the yard look bigger or to enhance the look of the property, is that sort of I'm just trying to think of how we can at least try to help a developer enhance that neighborhood to make it look the way sort of they envision. I mean, they're not gonna, you wouldn't think somebody would want to put a sidewalk where it's gonna be useless, because then it's gonna make it difficult to sell the lots and sell the houses. But yet there could be some concept that it would work well. I'm just trying to think if it has to be only outright by the street, or if it can be further
And your
up.
point on more grass, to me, if you look in the upper right with a truck, you have more front yard in that situation where you keep the sidewalk in the right of way. So I know that Alan was saying last time, yes, he was wanting to push it back, but I thought it was more about the utilities.
It was utility access.
Utility, I'm just thinking how it all.
Between the road and the sidewalk.
And so you see the pickup truck pictures on the right-hand side, you show the utilities there. So you show it in somebody's essentially front yard on their property. So does that mean there's a utility right-of-way all the way up to their front door? Or how does that work?
Showed here a 15-foot public utility and drainage easement. You might could get away with a 10. Some cities put it 20 foot all the way to the front door. Of course, they don't put utilities that close, but we showed it here just with a 15-foot utility easement.
But you're showing the water line in the right of
Yes,
way.
the water or sewer, this is a half section, so it would be water on one side, sewer on the other.
Gotcha.
You know, and then whatever side the water's on, the gas would probably be on that side and the electric and comms on the sewer side.
Has anybody else had any trouble with this? Is this just a Allen Howard project problem, or, have we run into this before?
Well, we don't have a plethora of developers in Manchester. So it has commonly been a Mr. Howard issue. But he has done developments with the grass strip, and he's done some developments without the grass strip. One of the pictures that you all have before you is one of his developments with the sidewalk along the road. And that is still having the sidewalk within the right-of-way, just without the grass strip. But the problem that occurs with that method is ADA compliance at each driveway. So at each driveway, the driveway apron is a cross slope of greater than 2%, making the sidewalk not ADA compliant. So it's doable, but depending on the grade of the land, it could be difficult.
Do you compare our language to other municipalities or other places?
So Adam and Scott work for other municipalities, and one of the pictures there is actually a subdivision in Shelbyville.
I got you, but what about their wording? Is their wording similar?
I mean, as far as other municipalities you've worked with?
For example.
Yeah, this typical section that you're looking at here that has Times Drive is the bottom picture. That's the exact same typical section as we're showing here that Manchester has as well. As a matter of fact, they've actually, since this, changed the road typical section and required that the sidewalk be put right against the back of curb to eliminate the grass strip altogether.
Okay, so the wording is the same, is this, the
I
wording?
mean, it's not word for word the same, but it's close.
Same intent.
Same intent.
Right.
And on our handout, the packet that you've got, what's in the yellow, that's current language?
Yes, well,
Okay.
that whole section is the current language, but what's in yellow is really what.
The
was ultimately
applicable
discussed
part,
today.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the way it's currently written.
Yes.
All right, we're real quick too. I see George here. I don't know, George, is this something, you have any comment to address on this too, since,
I'd like to see it stay within the right of ways, you know, and far as that grassy strip, far as a maintenance issue for us and our department, I'd like to see that go away, but that's probably not gonna happen. You know, have the grassy strip in there. Because if you have somebody that's not mowing it, the public works has to go and mow it. Or as a maintenance issue for us.
okay, do you see any issues with what's been discussed with the utilities and their location versus the sidewalk?
As far as the utilities would be out there close to the sidewalk, of course, I don't see any problems with it myself. You know, they'll have to replace if something happens, if it's under the sidewalk, but that has happened in the past too.
Yeah, the utilities want to be as tight to the sidewalk, so if you look at the bottom picture there, and then, of course, one of the other figures, but typically they're just right off the sidewalk.
Yeah, right on the backside.
In the grass, and most time it conforms to the drawing we had up there earlier, where that water line or sewer line still is within the right of way.
Right. Like where you're doing that double parking, that's what we run across too, is like where there's two cars parked, then you can't walk down the sidewalk, because it's blocking the sidewalk.
And this one on the left is to show that even if you do have one car in there, no matter where you put it, if it's in a R4 and we put the sidewalk on the back of the right of way, it's likely gonna be on the sidewalk.
So if you did away with the 2-foot grass strip and you pull the sidewalk on out closer to the road, that'll give you 2 more foot of driveway. Does that help anything at all? Does that solve anything?
What do you do about your mailbox?
We don't have
Well-
mailboxes.
We don't have those
We
kiosks.
don't have mailboxes.
No more mailboxes in
Is
subdivision.
that in every development?
Is that in every development,
Is
sure
that in
enough?
every development? Yeah, kiosk?
Well, there are some times that the postmaster will approve if there's existing single-family lots on a roadway, and here comes a next phase that's similar to that. I mean, they have allowed some, but in general, yes, they're getting away.
So if there's an existing phase, this discussion may be irrelevant. I mean, if, you know, we would want to try and match whatever sort of is existing. Okay.
So let me ask one more question. And so on your example on the right, the top section on the right, really, as long as that sidewalk could be pushed up to right in front of the back wheel of that truck, because that would be inside the right of, if somebody wanted to push it all the way, the current language just says has to be in the non-paved area of the right of way. Is that, and with a minimum 2 foot, so you'd have obviously more than 2 feet to the pavement, but that would be sort of as,
You could,
it
but
could go. I'm not saying that you would want to, but I'm just saying, in theory, somebody could under the current language. Is that right?
you could, but we would probably flag it as just not really feasible, because if you look at it, it probably wouldn't work. You know, it's not a regulation requirement, it's just a practicality requirement. Unless it's in like a R1 zone. If it's in a R1 and you've got, 35-foot setback, it'd probably be fine.
Or it could be addressed with a setback on the plat if somebody pushed the setbacks back
Yes.
and made the setback larger than what was required by
The minimum.
right.
What if the subdivision required a pretty good ditch for drainage, coming off from the curb, and you had to put the sidewalk in? How would that fall into
So we don't allow open ditches.
You have to tile it.
call it?
Mayor, what are your thoughts?
I kinda like, the truck side, right? I mean, to me, if you're gonna use a sidewalk and you're gonna have something blocking it, then it kinda goes against what you're trying to do. I think, and best I can remember from what, Mr. Howard talked about that day, he did discuss moving the setbacks back to make it work as he wants, and it'd be on him, right? I mean, they were big enough lots, the best I can remember, to accomplish what he wants. He's just gonna have to push that line back.
And there are a couple of more minor issues with having sidewalk that far away from the road, because unless you keep your sidewalk going with your road, you can run into grading issues, especially if you're building your sidewalk piecemeal at a time as builders are building it. Then now they have to coordinate where their sidewalks are gonna come together on back up in their lot, if they have this, particularly in steeper terrain, like 5% or greater. If you get to where roads are steeper than 5%, technically, the sidewalk is supposed to go with the road in order to go above the 5% and still be ADA compliant in the right-of-way. So if you get back away from it, technically that gets out of the public right-of-way access guidelines criteria.
But is that really on the developer then to have to bear, if there's extra cost to do that? That's on them to
That
bear that, right?
that coordination would be on them, but it would run into pretty significant construction issues that Brittany would have to deal with should they have to start making them tear out sidewalk.
Kinda like Magnolia Glen.
So what I'm gathering from you all is you all want to make an amendment of some sort
Like this.
with an allowance if there is an additional setback. Is that correct or incorrect?
No, they got.
No, I don't. As a matter of fact, no matter what Alan would agree to, and I know Alan would follow up on anything he did, but I don't know if he sells it to somebody, what their commitment would be. And so, I think the only discussion is, do you get rid of the 2-foot requirement or not get rid of the 2-foot requirement? I think that's the only thing we really discussed, whether we want to do that or not do that.
Okay.
It's hard to get the grass to grow in that little 2-foot strip. I mean,
Especially if you don't have mailboxes anymore.
I guess I would kind of leave that to the developer to decide from a look standpoint what they wanted to do.
But then you got to reword this thing then, right?
Yeah, because it says as a minimum.
So if you just left that sentence out,
Yeah, then you could put it wherever you wanted as long as it was in the non-paved area of the right of way.
yeah.
And homeowners really don't maintain that little strip of grass, really.
I agree.
I mean, do they not maintain it?
I can't, there's some hard heads out there, I'm sure. So if you deleted that last sentence, does that cover what we're talking about? It leaves it, if you deleted this last sentence around here?
So that would require it to still be within the right-of-way, but not require a grass strip.
That's right.
Correct.
I will say that in a R4 or R5, you can still run into issues there, because then you're only gonna have your 20-foot setback, and that 20-foot setback even is really not enough to, you would need something to hold it out next to the road.
So, yeah, so it says require at least 2 foot. So we're getting rid of that 2-foot requirement, right?
Yeah, he's saying that brings the house closer to the street, essentially. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
That 20 feet gets diminished now.
No, the 20-foot setback would still be there.
Yeah, but it just becomes closer to the road, that's all. Just because that line's moving this
Well, the
way.
right-of-way doesn't
No.
move.
Yeah, your
Right-of-way
lot line
doesn't
stays
change.
the same.
Yeah, your
So-
right of way's from the middle of the road.
So how
Yeah.
wide are you making that? When that strip goes away, what happens to the sidewalk? Does it come tight to this road?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
if you delete that last sentence, Brittany, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess that would give them the leeway to put the sidewalk anywhere in the grass area. But we would just have to make sure that depending on whether it's an R4 zone or an R3 or R1, whether we allow them to go that far back or not, because you don't want to be left with only 20 foot, because that's still not enough.
Right.
So
Can you
do you
have
want to
different
put some
side-
wording in there to say, yeah, in an R4, it's recommended or maybe even required that it be not more than 2 foot or 5 foot or whatever, but that an additional front setback could be given and that grass strip could be elongated.
So if I'm hearing you right, we could have different sidewalk requirements per different zoning due to the size of the lot? Would solve maybe some of our
I think
problems.
that's what we're saying here is we would allow, but if you take that sentence away, then we don't have any good teeth from a staff standpoint to hold it tight to the curb area.
Well, you really don't now, though, anyway, because it says it can go anywhere in the non-paved areas. I guess my thought would be, in practicality, if you have a R4 development that's got a 20-foot setback, is that gonna really be, is somebody gonna really put a sidewalk right up against the house? I mean, that just doesn't, conceptually, it doesn't seem like that would make sense for a developer to do. And the setback really is gonna run from the lot line, right? Which is, the lot line is the edge of the right-of-way, and the setback is off of the lot line, not off of the pavement.
Yeah, you'd still have that 20-foot
So-
front yard.
Yeah, so, I guess the question is, what I don't see on there, even if we just deleted that last sentence, was a situation where if somebody wanted to, well, I guess if they increased the right-of-way, it would still be in the non-paved right-of-way. If somebody wanted a deeper thing, they could always increase the right-of-way. That's just,
But they
assuming the
typically
city
don't
would
wanna do
accept
that
it.
because
Yeah.
that loses lot area density, so.
I guess that's why he was talking about a public use easement, so it would still be considered technically part of the lot, but would be a,
Yeah.
Public
not
use.
right away.
yeah.
To me, would make sense to have different requirements for different zoning, since you have larger room to work with on larger lots.
Yeah, you have that 35-foot front setback.
Yeah, so if somebody's got acre lots and they're way off the road, that they could park 4 cars in their driveway and still not mess it, whether they've got 10 foot or 15 foot from the road, makes sense. But if you're in an R4, this is an issue.
And even Alan's project was an R4, he did have larger lots, so he's got some flexibility about what he can do, I guess.
I guess that's what I was gonna say. You can have an R4, it can be zoned R4, but you can still develop it like it was R1.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So if you're developing it like it's R1, you don't want to have to be constrained to what an R4 zone requirement is just because you're in an R4 zone, because you're actually developing it in a bigger fashion, if that makes
Those
sense.
are all minimums. They're not
Yeah.
all absolutes. They're just all minimums. Minimum such
Well, that would be
setback,
a-
minimum setback.
Just a zone request change then.
Mhm.
So then if that situation came up, and he's wanting to do the R1, but he's in an R4, can he just come back and say, hey, since I'm building an R1, even though it's in R4, I want to switch it back to R1 to take care of
I
the
guess
problem?
you could, but you wouldn't have to.
Wasn't no reason to do that. You get another advantage. They get an advantage by getting it zoned R4 and then doing kind of what they want them to do, depending on what the market is or whatever, right? So again, if we delete the last sentence, is that a bad thing?
Yeah,
I
I
think you
don't,
should leave the last sentence, but then add a statement about the R4 zone, because then that still allows you that 2-foot strip. I think that's what Scott's recommended.
I'm saying similar to, yes, maybe add some verbiage to it to give some additional guidelines if it's based on the zoning.
so that's going a little farther than where we are
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah.
If you're
More
talking about
restrictive.
bringing back more of a proposal, I guess, to,
Long-term, is it the best decision to do? I think so. I mean,
Can you just specify a minimum dimension from the front setback line to the sidewalk? That way, as the front setback line moves the sidewalk, that minimum would have to move as well. Of 25
It has to be
feet.
within the right of way, right? That's what this says. So that's as far back as it can go.
Yeah, so there would be that requirement, it has to stay in the right of way.
Oh, that's right.
There would
That's
also-
already there, yeah.
There would also be a minimum dimension from front setback to sidewalk, which controls it, how far it can go this way. Within the right of way.
You don't want it out of the right of way, because
so
the
you're,
street department has to go over there and work on it. You want,
yeah, so
has
you're
to have
really trying to
control.
designate where in the right of way it goes versus saying it just has to be in the right of way.
Right, because if you have a 20-foot setback, you don't want just that 20-foot left for a car to park.
You'd rather have it closer to the road.
Right.
So if you got rid of that 2 foot and then put your language in there to get it closer to the road, that would solve a lot of problems.
Or specified, no matter what zone you're in, you have, your sidewalk has to be placed no closer than 25 foot from the front of the buildings. That would always give you 25 foot, no matter what zone you're in, minimum, possibly more, depending on the setback. And it has to be held in the right of way. So if your building goes on back, you still can't push it out of the right of
I
way.
got you. So you're for deleting the sentence and adding another sentence.
Possibly, yeah.
I think that's
Can
what
you
you
say what you
said.
said?
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
can you
you're
the
basing
quality-
it off
repeat
the
that?
building instead
I
of the
like,
road.
but what he said about say that about the 25 foot again.
So if you specify the sidewalk has to be a minimum of, let's say, 25 foot from the front of building, no matter what zone you're in, as that front setback line moves, so does the sidewalk. But no matter how far back the setback goes, it still has to remain in the right of way.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
That makes sense,
It's 2 birds with 1 stone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just summed it all up right there. I don't know why you didn't say that like that.
He probably did, we weren't listening.
Yeah, we were not listening.
You figure out how to say that in the motion and I'd second it.
Well, before we get that far, let me also say, since this was advertised as a public hearing, was there anybody else in the audience that had any comment or anything to address to the board on this particular item? Okay? Seeing none? I guess that's up to the weekend, depending on what the board wants to do. This was set as a public hearing. We've had a lot of discussion about it. It can be, action can be taken, no action can be taken. It can be put on another meeting if you want to have something specific proposed, if you can come up with something. I assume somebody could approve that tonight. That's,
Can we not just approve what Adam said and let's go on with it and not have to
So
do
we
this?
strike the last sentence,
Right.
and then we make it a
Add the
minimum
25 foot.
25 foot,
Yeah.
From
minimum
the building.
25 foot from the building, and have it put in the right of way,
At least 25.
It already
feet,
says
right?
it's in the right of way
Yeah.
now.
25 foot
Right.
from the building,
Yeah,
yeah.
the non-pavement right away, did
I think I just made that motion.
I second it. I don't really know what you said, but I agree with you.
Will that accommodate the previous
It's already in
request
there.
from?
Yeah.
So a motion has been made to delete the last sentence
Right?
Mhm.
Yep.
and to insert the sentence, sidewalks are to be a minimum of 25 foot from front of building. Is that correct?
That's the first part.
Did I say that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
What else?
Yes.
And
Yeah, that-
also placed in the right of
And
way.
they have to
Oh,
be
that's
placed-
already, that's
It's
already,
already
it's already
It's in
in there.
there.
Okay.
Will that satisfy the previous request from the last subdivision?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
But you know,
But he-
But you said that he was in agreement to pushing it back a little.
But he wasn't in agreement to put it within the right of way.
He was trying to do something for the
I
utility
just don't know why the
people.
city would
He wanted to
not
put
want
the
it in right
utilities
of way.
between the
It seems like it's
sidewalk
in the
and the
best
road.
interest
That's
of the
right.
city for it to be in the right of way.
Exactly.
I don't know how we could go against that then.
Yeah, I think his thought was a public use easement, so it would still be, the city would have an easement for it. It wouldn't technically be right of way, but we've got a, does everybody understand the motion?
Yes.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Thank you. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Very good. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 4 is the public hearing for plans of service acceptance for annexation of approximately 99 acres on Murfreesboro Highway for Robert and Shante Gilly, map 68, parcel 7.06, 7.09, and 7.10. I think everybody has in their packet, this of course came up, I think, in August. At our August meeting, the board recommended to send it to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen with a positive recommendation. I think you have in your packet a letter that I did to the board after that meeting, along with the copies of the plan of services. But I think Brittany has since decided or become aware that that really should have been a public, quote-unquote, public hearing as well, and it was not advertised as a public hearing. So it has been advertised for tonight as a public hearing. And I guess before we, Brittany, is there anything you want to say about that before I see if there's anybody in the audience who has any comments on it? Or?
Right, so generally, we do just one agenda item for annexation and plans of service acceptance. I discovered that the Planning Commission is actually supposed to hold a public hearing 7 days prior to the public hearing at the Board of Mayor and Alderman level. To my knowledge, we haven't necessarily done that way in the past, but when you know better, you try to do better. So to cover our bases, and considering these are being brought back up for reconsideration in January, I wanted to bring them back before you all. And as Mark stated, you know, the report has been submitted to the board already. And I just wanted to run it back by you all and make sure you all still want to send it forward with a positive recommendation based on the plans of service.
So there's 2 recommendations we need to make in the future when they annex something, whether to annex it or not, and whether we recommend approval of the plans of service. There's 2
Yeah.
different line items?
Yeah, so in the future, I will, we'll do a public hearing on the plans of service, and then the annexation is 2 separate items on the agenda.
Right, on the same agenda, though.
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
So the first one is for the 99 acres on Murfreesboro Highway for the Gilly property. I have the map pulled up here. This one included parcel 7.1, 7.09, and then this little strip right here, I think it's 7.06 is its parcel number. I could be incorrect on that. And then you all have the plans of service before you. Those have not changed.
It never changed.
Continue with the positive recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, if that's what you all choose.
Well, first, let's see, was there anybody in the audience here tonight that had anything they wanted to state or address the planning commission with in relation to this annexation or plan of service request? Okay, seeing none, because Brittany, would it be a, if the board's already sent it with a positive recommendation, would it be, given the fact that it's, we might tell tell everybody on the commission. I think what I understood was the commission sent it with a positive recommendation. The board of mayor and aldermen,
We haven't voted, don't you?
They brought it back, it's.
I know, but was it denied
No.
at a meeting and then it moved for it to be reconsidered at
It
another
failed
meeting?
due to lack of motion, I believe, at
Okay.
the
So there was no
November
negative,
meeting, at a special called November meeting. At the December Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting, it was brought back up for reconsideration for the January meeting.
okay.
So it did fail once.
It
And
did
it-
fail.
It did
And it
fail.
failed because of the lack of service, or why?
It
No.
failed due to lack of motion at the board level, I believe.
So motion was not made to approve it, so it just failed. I
There were
guess.
enough people there that they could have had a vote.
Yes.
Nobody moved it.
Nobody moved it.
Made a motion that couldn't get a second.
Are you sure?
Yeah, Thomas, or Alderman Crossland.
Yeah, he made a motion on a lot of things that day,
Yeah, but none of them got seconds.
but I thought this one did. And I thought the other one, the 10 acres did too. And then there were votes.
So there were 3 annexations on the agenda that night, all of which included a resolution for the plans of service and a resolution for annexation. The resolution for plans of service failed due to lack of motion, and for some reason, you all continued with the resolution for annexation, and it failed in general by vote.
It failed by vote.
Ultimately, it should not have been voted on due to the fact
That's
that the
true.
plans of service
That's
failed.
true, yeah.
But nonetheless, now it's been,
Now, nonetheless, now it's being brought back up for reconsideration in January, and I have new information. And so, to cover our bases as the planning commission, I wanted you all to have a look at the plans of service. And if you all still feel the need for a positive recommendation, make that motion and we'll proceed.
so it seems like we can either leave because we've already sent it with a positive recommendation. We can, if somebody wants to sort of reaffirm that positive recommendation, that could be done. I don't know that we have to take action, but,
So I'd like to reaffirm that and just vote on it again to send it with a positive recommendation.
okay?
I'll second.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second to maintain that positive recommendation. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, next item on the agenda, I think is exactly the same, just a different piece of property, but I think the same situation. It'd be item number 5, public hearing, plans of service acceptance for annexation of 10.37 acres at the end of Sissom Lane for Donald Parker, map 67, parcel 36.1. Similar copy in your packet of the letter that I did following the August meeting and the plans of service. So I think this was the exact same situation. Let me ask real quick if do you want to explain anything else, Brittany, or I'll just see if there's anybody in the audience?
It's the exact same scenario, just a different property.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience here tonight that has anything they would like to say in this public hearing related to this particular plan of service and annexation request? Okay, seeing none.
I'll make that same motion that I made earlier, just for this.
I'll second.
Okay, so we've got a motion to sort of reaffirm the positive recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Alderman, which has been seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Is this close to where some property was purchased by the, maybe school system or something?
Yes.
Can you show me which property that is?
This property. So it barely touches it right there.
In the plans of service, has it been considered for that property? Or is that been brought up
What do you mean?
for the development of 37.04?
So that's already in the city limits.
So, does it have services there on the property?
I am unsure of that.
You talking about the 40 acres
37 acres.
Donald Parker owns?
Yeah.
Wait, you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a
the property
school,
The city has
yeah.
purchased, correct?
Yes,
Yes, so it's, the school system has purchased this.
that's
Yeah.
what I was talking about.
So this is Batesville. There is a
There's-
significant sewer line that goes around.
Okay,
So there's
okay,
definitely sewer very close to it.
okay.
The other 40 acres is right underneath there, right?
Yes, so this is Mr. Parker's
Yeah.
Stonehenge development off of Interstate Drive. This is the rear portion of that. So it's directly adjacent to it. I believe it's going to be an additional phase of that.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, if not, we have a motion and a second to send it, to continue with a positive recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Very good. No report from me tonight. Scott, do you have anything? All right. Brittany, I see you've got our typical January question. Is that because of MLK Day?
Yes, so our meeting date falls on the holiday. I have it scheduled for the 21st, which I believe is the Tuesday following our regular date at 5:30. So I will send out an invite for that.
So you're talking about Tuesday, the 21st?
Yes, Tuesday, the 21st at 5:30 will be our January meeting date, if you all agree to that. Please do, because I've reserved the boardroom.
Does anybody have any problems with that? Okay, I think you're good to go on that, Brittany.
Okay, and then also in January, we'll do the annual election of officers. So that will be on the agenda for January. Election of officers.
Oh.
That's all I have.
Okay,
I was gonna refer back to Scott. I think he had something he wanted to say
I
tonight.
could steal the floor for just a
Absolutely.
second.
Steal
So,
away. Steal away.
I've served this commission for right at 25 years, since the year late 2000. And as my retirement grows a little nearer, I need to slow down a bit. And I'm proposing to the mayor and Brittany that we allow Adam to take over my duties. Adam has worked closely with the city for the last 8 years since he's been on board with us, and even more so working with the new mayor, water and sewer department, all departments. I've kind of turned a lot of that over, and so over the last 6 months, Adam has reviewed plans. He's kind of been a part of the review process at my office here, and I've just kind of filled this seat. But I propose to turn it over to Adam if everybody is in concurrence with that, Mayor.
I would be.
I mean, I personally enjoy having both of them on call, but I do enjoy working with Adam, so.
And I'm still around, and so I'll be kind of reviewing things as well, but I probably won't be at as many meetings, but I'll fill the gap as needed as well,
So this is your last meeting, as being the official spokesman?
if that's acceptable to all at this table.
Quick, wasn't it?
It's
not gonna phase out, is he?
Well, I appreciate your service, for sure, as many years as you've done it. There's probably as many silly and dumb questions you've been asked, that you had to repeat several times, so do definitely appreciate that.
Well, it's been enjoyable, and again, I'm here. It's not like I'm retiring next month, but I'm gonna leave it in good hands here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, very good, yes.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Look forward to having you around more.
You did a great job, Scott.
Well, very good. Get the microphone there. All right, let's see, who has not made a motion tonight?
Sure.
I'll make a
Gerald?
motion that we adjourn.
I second that motion.
We'll let the mayor, yeah. All right, very good, and I think we have